Hi, everybody. Welcome in tonight. We're really excited that you're here. Please feel free to jump into the chat and share your name, your pronouns, if you feel comfortable sharing them, and where you're coming from. We'd love to hear from you. Hi, everyone. If you're just joining us, we'll just take a minute to get started. Please share your name, your pronouns if you like, and where you're coming from. And if you have a disability or another health concern, we would especially love to hear from you if you're willing to share about your experiences, especially if there are any questions coming in tonight that you would like to share your experiences and thoughts about too. We'd love to learn from you and have you join us. All right, we're just about getting ready to get started. Thank you everybody for joining us tonight. It's Birdability Week, so happy Birdability Week. My name is Freya McGregor. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the Birdability Coordinator and an occupational therapist, and I'm really glad you're here with us tonight. We have a really exciting panel tonight called Empowering Exploration, Going Birding with an Access Challenge. And we're really excited to learn from our panelists and from you all in the audience. Again, if you have an access challenge of any kind, we would love to hear from you if you'd like to share about your experiences and your answers maybe to some of these questions. I'd like to send a special thank you to National Audubon, who are hosting this event tonight on their webinar, Zoom webinar platform, and on Facebook Live. Hello, Facebook people, if you're tuning in from Facebook. Huge thanks to National Audubon. They have been incredibly supportive of our work at Birdability. And when I say that we wouldn't be here tonight without them, that is very, very true. It was Birdability Week last year that pushed us into becoming our own nonprofit, and it's so exciting that we're here to do this work. By the way, we have closed captions available tonight, so if you need closed captions, please turn them on. If you turn them on and you decide that you don't need them, you can certainly turn them off later. We also have an American Sign Language interpreter, and while interpreters, ASL interpreters and captions can be an additional cost, as can honorariums, and our panelists will be receiving honorariums for their time and their experiences tonight. These are additional costs to programming, but being inclusive and accessible means that we budget for this, and we're glad to include them. I would like to acknowledge the Muskogee Creek people. A lot of the work for Birdability happens on Muskogee Creek land that the Muskogee Creek people were forced by the US government to Indian Territory, but there are still Muskogee living in Alabama today. And so I would like to extend my gratitude and appreciation to Muskogee people past and present for their stewardship of the land that I work, live and go birding on. Tonight, we're going to hear from a really diverse group of birders, but we definitely do not claim, birders and explorers, I should say, but we definitely do not claim that this is representative of every kind of birder or explorer. And we invite you to consider who is not being represented on this panel tonight and how you can make sure in your work, in your communities, that as many voices and experiences are included in conversations about inclusion and access. We also want to make sure this panel is a safe place for our panelists and for anyone attending. So any behavior that is in any way racist, homophobic, transphobic, ableist, sexist, all of that awful stuff, you'll be given one opportunity to clarify your intent or apologize, and then you will be removed. And it's really uncomfortable for me to say that, let alone have to do that. But my discomfort at doing that is much less than any harm that might be caused to the people we're trying to create a safe place for. So just want to let you know, so we can start off on the right foot. And finally, if you're new to Birdability, we're really glad you're here. We're a brand new nonprofit, and we're all about sharing the joy of birding and the outdoors with people who have disabilities and other health concerns. So if you'd like to learn more, our website is birdability.org, or you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter at Birdability. And because we're a nonprofit and a brand new one, we especially appreciate donations to help us continue our work. So I will drop the donation link in the chat. And if you learn anything tonight or think it's worth supporting our work, we would be especially grateful of any donation. With that, I'm going to turn off my camera. Please keep going in the chat. And if you have any questions, we should have a Q&A box, or I'll be keeping track of the questions, and I'll be popping back in towards the end when we will have time for questions. So please share your questions for the panel, and we look forward to that part. All right, without further ado, I would like to introduce to you the Birdability founder, Virginia Rose, who is our moderator tonight. Virginia, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Freya. And let me just say thank you so much again, National Audubon, and thank you to the panelists. I'm so excited to be amongst all you explorers. One of the greatest joys of founding Birdability is finding all you people. Where have you been? I've been looking for you. And so I'm thrilled to have you here now. And also want to invite the panelists to interact with each other in a way that everyone feels comfortable and safe. All right, so we're going to start tonight by going around and letting everyone introduce him or herself. And I'm just going to start off with Topher.
All right, I am Topher Downham. I live here in Boulder, Colorado. C6-7 quadriplegic. I injured myself 26 years ago, and I have limited mobility in my hands, but my arms I can use, my legs I can't use. So just doing all sorts of fun things, bird watching, fishing, mountain biking, all from my wheelchair or adaptive equipment similar to that. I work for open space and mountain parks, and do a lot of birding programs with Boulder Audubon. So that's how I got involved.
Thank you, Topher. Michael?
Yeah, hi. My name is Michael Herbin. Pronouns are he, his, him. I live in an area that was long home to Dakota people, and I live within walking distance of a river that they named Minnesota. So more specifically, I'm in the Twin Cities area of Minnesota. And I do have an access challenge. I'm legally blind due to retinitis pigmentosa, which is a genetic condition that kind of hit me in my mid-20s. Before that, my eyesight was pretty normal. And what it means is that I have no night vision. I can't see in low light levels at all. And I have no peripheral vision. So I am not totally blind, but I meet the legal blindness criteria. So I have about 2% of my visual field left. So if you were to hold your arm out your hand out at arm's reach and make a fist, that's about the size of the window that I can see through. So my challenge with birding is getting the birds into that little window. And if I get them there, I can see them. But sometimes I don't want to go there.
Thank you, Michael.
Sure.
And Marjorie.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I live in Massachusetts. I do most of my exploring in New England just because New England is so rich in all sorts of things. I have a mobility challenge as well as other, I put a little note in to explain to people I have heat sensitivity. So after over about 70 degrees, my legs stop working. So I'm really very limited in summertime. People think summer is when it's a wonderful time to go exploring. It's not for me. So spring and fall and even winter are much, much better. For me, I was a single mother and got diagnosed with a brain tumor that was surgically removed mostly, but left my entire right side totally paralyzed. So my right side has come back to some movement, and I am able to walk out in the outdoors, mostly with hiking sticks. And I'll talk more about how my hiking poles have made it so that I can be out there. But I have a whole community on Facebook of easy walks and several books that I've written about finding easy walks. And that's what it's all about, is helping people find easy walks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marjorie. And Emerson.
There we go. Hi, I'm so excited to be here. My name is Emerson Milam. I am, pronouns. Hi, yes, she, her. I live in the Northern Virginia area. It's where I do a lot of my birding. I have had chronic Lyme disease for, I want to say like 12 years now. Feels like forever. And that impacts me in all sorts of different ways. But mostly it causes chronic fatigue and widespread pain that fluctuates. But I also have ADHD, which makes me very prone to wanting to explore and get into things. So the two together kind of make an interesting area where I exist and bird and explore. And it's been a challenge, but I'm excited to talk about it because I wish someone would have talked about it when I was younger.
Absolutely. And I love the way you refer to your ADHD as a super birding power. And Bonnie.
Okay, thank you. Yes, my pronoun, well, I'm Bonnie Lukowitz. My pronouns are she, her. And I want to acknowledge that I'm living, learning, and working today on the land of the Chochenyu in Berkeley, California. So probably the only West Coaster. And if you see me throwing my arms up in the air, it's because it's raining. So send your thoughts our way. I have been advocating for greater access to the outdoor for people with disabilities for close to 40 years. Acquired my disability almost 50 years ago, dune buggy accident. And I'm a quadriplegic, so paralyzed from basically the shoulders down, and use a motorized wheelchair now. And I work for a program called Bay Area Outreach Recreation Program, and recently started a program called Birding for All. And I'm actually thinking of changing it to Nature for All, because once you're out birding, you're doing so much more than just looking at the birds. And I'm just thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. And Nicole.
Hi, I'm Nicole. I'm from Connecticut. I live and work on Pequot Mohegan land. I work as an educator at the Denison Pequot Seaboast Nature Center, which is also a raptor bird rehab. I'm autistic, I have ADHD, and I struggle a lot with chronic pain and illness, which is actually when I started my birding. I've always been obsessed with nature, but when I first got sick, I was bedridden for months at a time and couldn't really do anything except look out the window. And that's when I really fell in love with birds.
Excellent. Okay, great. I wanted to say just a few quick words about the title of this panel, which is Empowering the Explorer. And I realized maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago that part of what I was loving about birding was that I was putting myself in a position to explore. And it felt like the very first time that I had been outside by myself exploring. And it brought me to a different sense of who I am. And I wondered if each of you had a similar experience. Sometimes in my explorations, I would encounter something that was really difficult. And part of me thought, okay, now what? And then the other part of me said, let's see what you're made of, which that's just kind of family style, right? But I wanted to find out from each of you, what would you say was your most challenging exploration? If you could just spend about 2 minutes letting us know about the who, what, where, when of your most challenging adventure. I'll start with Topher.
That's a great question. And I've been thinking about it for the last couple of days, what my the hardest one was. But I think maybe the first adventure when I was like kind of figuring out my disability, wanted to get back into the outdoors. And a friend of mine told me about downhill mountain biking. So we ended up in Crested Butte, and they really hadn't worked with quadriplegics yet with the downhill mountain biking. So I got into this 4-wheel mountain bike with a bucket seat in the middle, and we're like, all right, it fits, great. And they threw me on the lift, and then we got to the top, and we're like, wait a minute, you don't have any grip. How are we going to keep your hands on the steering wheel, and how are you going to brake? So we we'll flip the brakes around on the handlebars and rest your hands on the hoods of the brakes, and you'll be all right. And they're wait a minute, but you can't hold on to it. So what are we going to do? And everybody's thinking, and then somebody pulls out a thing of duct tape. It's like, duct tape, we'll use duct tape. And so they basically duct tape my hands onto the handlebars just above the brakes. And they were like, well, maybe we should tether you the first run down. You won't be out of control. And I was like, no, I got to go for this on my own. Let's go for it. And I just bombed it down the hill, like zooming past trees and dropping off rocks. And it was just amazing to be able-bodied in nature again and doing a sport that I had done before. I just fell in love with it immediately. And then I was like, can we do it again? Can we do it again? Can we do it again? And yeah, it was just amazing. We figured out better ways to hold my hands on, but the duct tape saved the day to begin with, for sure. Yeah, that was my first memory of a hardship and exploring and just enjoying life out in the outdoors.
Did you at that moment think, oh, what have I done? What have I gotten myself into? Or were you just like, it didn't matter?
At the beginning, when I first started rolling down, I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? But after realizing that I could brake when I needed to, which I didn't do that often, I just enjoyed it to the utmost, for sure.
It's cool. I love it. I'm going to be coming back to some of your stories. The pictures of your mountain biking is like nuts, by the way.
Thanks.
I love it. All right. Thank you so much, Topher. Michael, what about yours?
Well, I think I can't pin it down to one particular place because the same thing kept happening over and over in different places. And I never really could seem to learn from it because there's really not a lot I could do. But the first time, I think it might have been in Ecuador, that we went somewhere deep in the tropics to go birding. And we were so excited, my wife and I, who I do all my birding with. And she's the reason why I can be a birder. She helps me so much in the field. And she's a great birder. She's been doing it her whole life. But the forests are so dark and they're so huge. And I knew I would have trouble seeing birds because of that. But what I didn't really count on was the fact that often these trails are so winding and difficult, full of tree roots and rocks. And you add that in when it's dark and it's extremely hot. And I'm nearsighted. So if I'm out in the field, I have to wear glasses. So your glasses are fogged up, and my vision doesn't need anything like that either. And and you're just being eaten alive by mosquitoes, and you're going through all this, and I can't see anything. So maybe I'll be able to watch where my feet are going to not trip, but then there's hanging branches and vines, so I'm knocking myself on the head, and it's just, I never thought this is what I'm going to be doing, to go get birds, putting myself through this. And I keep doing it though.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the idea of finding yourself out in the woods or wherever your exploration point is and asking yourself, why am I doing this? Whose idea was this? Anyway, thank you, Michael. Marjorie, what has been your most challenging adventure?
Mostly I was thinking whichever one I'm just doing right now. I deal with a lot of anxiety. And so every new place to explore is hard for me. And when we travel, I feel like I'm constantly saying, but I'm worried about this and I'm worried about that. But probably my most challenging one was the very first ones that my husband took me out on when we were first dating, because I met him and he was telling me of all the places he explored, and I said, take me. But then once we did, I was terrified. And he's the one that had all these places that he wanted to show me that he didn't realize all my limitations yet. And so we really went places that were more bouldering and rock climbing on things, going up to mountaintops that he wanted to show me the sights. And as we did this, he finally kept saying, I think you'll do better with some walking sticks. And I agreed to one at a time, one at first. And then he said, you really do better with two. And I've been kicking and screaming the whole way. It's been hard, but it isn't that I didn't want to, it was just that I was so afraid. And so not conquering, but just learning to cope with levels of anxiety, to do the things that I'm scared about doing and doing them anyway is what I deal with. And I haven't stopped, but having the support has made the difference, because doing it by myself, I just wouldn't. I'm very grateful.
Thank you, Marjorie. That is going to be also a very interesting response to another question I have. I was going to say a couple things. First, what a way to start a relationship. you guys must have been incredibly patient and kind with each other. I'm not sure I would have been all open to someone telling me what I needed.
I give my husband a lot of credit because he was very politic. He was very, very gentle about it, but he really wanted to show me wonderful things, and I really wanted to see them. I was just pretty reluctant to get a lot of help.
Cool.
So it's hard to just have help.
Thank you, Marjorie, for especially helping tie it back to your particular access challenge. That helps. Thank you. Emerson.
Hi. So I was thinking about this while everyone was answering, and I guess it kind of depends how you define challenging. So like for me, I have pain issues, so the physicality of things can change. But it's also kind of the mental aspect of what goes wrong and how do you move through that, which is not a strength of ADHD. Decision-making does not come very easily at times, and especially when things are going wrong. I was in Nicaragua back in 2016 building coral reefs, and I got like this mystery skin infection that what I thought was like blisters from the sun, being very pale, turned out to be a much bigger issue, and ended up getting me medevaced off the island before my trip even really started. But with that kind of challenge, and I had support. I was really fortunate to have kind of a support network who helped me through all of this. But the decision of, well, do I go home or do I let them cauterize my cut off arm and scuba dive anyways? Like, these are the kinds of things that might have been a little graphic, sorry. But these are the kinds of decisions you have to face when you are out in the field or off on an adventure. And luckily I made it home, and I was quite sad when I did, and it was important. So I went back and I finished up and I got to see a bunch of really cool things. because I was brave and I took the chance, but I also learned to listen to my body and my limits, which has been something we've worked on a lot.
Mhm. Interesting. You're the first person that's used the word brave in these replies, which I think that'd be something else that we could all discuss what that is and what it isn't. Thank you so much, Emerson. Emerson, I'm looking at you with like a more respect than before based on what you just said out loud. Thank you. Bonnie?
Okay, so living with a significant disability every day is kind of an adventure, but the kinds that I choose are, getting out there into the backwoods. And one day, just recently, usually I do a lot of information gathering before I go to an unknown place. And as I age, I also go with an able-bodied companion just because sometimes it's even more fun that way. But I came across this hidden forest, it was called, and it was a nursery, a combination nursery park. And pulled up and there was no accessible parking. I'm like, okay, not a good sign. We got in there and the owner happened to be a person with a disability, and he pointed out the best route. He used crutches. And we were going along fine until we came to a boardwalk and elevated over a little marsh. And it had like a 4-inch threshold. And I have a bolt under the bottom of my wheelchair, an easy lock bolt. So clearance, I need pretty good clearance in order to get up and over things. And I couldn't. And there were some people standing around. They said, oh, here, we can help you. And they did. And so I got up on this boardwalk, and at the other end of the boardwalk, it was like walking into a magical forest. I would have been really disappointed if I hadn't gotten there. And we tooled around in there for a while. And then it dawned on me, oh, those people aren't going to be there when I go back. How am I going to be able to get off the boardwalk? Am I going to be stuck out here all night? Which is why I bring someone with me now. And, but because I've had so many experiences of knowing that I've always gotten out of them, it kind of gave me the confidence that I got this, it's like, I know that I can do this and we'll figure out a way. And part of me loves that kind of challenge of figuring things out. So when we got there, I pointed some wood out to my friend and said, pile it up under the threshold. And that didn't work. So then I said, okay, put your foot. And so we went through a few machinations and it worked. And worse come to worse, I knew that she would be able to go get other people and help me out of that situation. But again, after coming through that and everything worked out, it just gives you the confidence to just keep pushing yourself further and further. And it was a great visit. And even though it wasn't very accessible, I keep telling people to go check it out.
Yeah, that is amazing. It's amazing, Bonnie. You found your inner MacGyver, right? I think each of us knows about our own inner MacGyvers. We figure stuff out in amazing ways. And as you said, that is such an empowering thing. And it really does catapult you into the next challenge, right, Bonnie? Cool.
Yes, absolutely. Bigger and better, right?
Right. Thank you. Nicole?
I have been thinking for days about this prompt because I just could not quite pick the most challenging because I feel like every time I leave the house is very challenging. But
yep.
I decided to go with the one that inspired Freya to reach out to me in the first place, which was when I visited Middle Creek Wildlife Refuge in Pennsylvania to see the snow geese. It was really hard. I think the hardest part was definitely the driving. Before I started birding, I had never gone more than 10, 15 minutes by myself. Driving was really difficult. And then the more I started exploring to go out, see birds a little bit further and further, I still take a break like every hour or two, like I stop and take a break. But to get to Middle Creek by sunrise, I had to go 6 hours all in one trip. and that was really hard. I still stopped to like eat or whatever, but I couldn't really take a break. It was pitch black, and so that was definitely the hardest part, but it was so worth it. It's so cool to see. I mean, there were like 70,000 geese there. How is that not amazing? It was kind of hard because a lot of places are really difficult when they're really busy, but this was really busy with tourists, which is like a completely different, overwhelming crowd. But the great thing about waterfowl compared to songbirds is that you don't really need to be listening to them. So I put on my trusty headphones, put up some music, and sat down, and I couldn't hear or be bothered by anybody really. And then of course I had to make the drive back, but when I do a road trip, I stretch it out and I stop every few hours. So the way back was much easier. And I absolutely plan on going back this year. I cannot wait.
Fabulous. Thank you. As you were speaking, Nicole, it reminded me of a feeling that I had just very recently out on Lake Creek Trail. And I actually wrote a little poem about it, but the main part that you are reminding me of is meeting yourself out there. I really think that happens. And I wanted for each of us to think about that idea about finding a person we maybe didn't know yet, about in getting in the car and driving for 6 hours, or putting yourself in a situation that maybe you don't know how it's going to work out. I really think that you meet someone there, and my line is, and it's magic when you do. Thank you so much, everybody, for your really wonderful answers.
Virginia, could I just say something?
Please do.
I just wanted to say, because there's all different ways to have an adventure, right? And it doesn't mean you have to go far from your home, because not everyone has that capacity. I just encourage people to, go around the block or whatever. That could be an adventure in its own. And just have a whole different mindset and just do something different than your routine. I think you can see that as an adventure.
Right, exactly. I wanted to ask.
Can I say something about that really quick? Because I love what Bonnie just said. So I was a competitive swimmer when I was younger. It was pretty good. Swam like every day of the week. And then all of a sudden my body couldn't do that anymore. And so I had to relearn how to do things. And part of that was redefining things. And so I define adventure. I wish I could remember his name, but it's anything with uncertain outcomes is an adventure. And that's pretty much every time I leave my house. So I love that. Yes, an adventure can be from your house, next to your house, across the street, or wherever.
Right. I think the key is that you are doing something uncertain. And that actually was my next question, which is, how do you handle uncertainty? My own observations are that I see so many people out in the world with what might be invisible disabilities who do not know how to handle uncertainty at all. I mean, there's a bunch of freakouts all the time. And so I wondered, how do each of you in your particular circumstances handle uncertainty? What do you do with that? Topher?
It seems like just because we're disabled, or I have a disability, there, like you say, there's always uncertainty. The body doesn't always work right. Like I have to worry about bowels and bladder, and bowels like deciding that they want to release when I least want them to. And but I think it slows you down if you worry too much about everything. So I just try to embrace it. Like I had a friend that was a flight attendant, and she gave me a free ticket to anywhere I wanted to go. And in the end, I just said, you decide for me. And 2 days before, she said, I'm going to Costa Rica. And just being thrown into that, and having the faith that there's going to be some amazing humans there that can help me out if I get stuck in a bad place. it turned into this amazing trip. I had to plan things as I went along
Mhm.
and had to ask for a lot of help. And the Costa Ricans were so helpful. And it turned out to be one of the hardest trips and one of the most fun trips. I ended up like fishing out on the ocean, and they were going to take me surfing, but that fell through, and they took me ziplining, and it was just because of all of the great people out there. And I kind of, when I'm doing an adventure and I'm like going past that uncertainty, I always fall back on the how nice people can be to help you out.
Right. I love it. Michael, tell us about how you handle uncertainty.
Well, I feel like there's uncertainty from having to do with people, and then there's uncertainty having to do with nature, and I treat them differently. Um, we've kind of gotten into a routine with how we go birding. Once we tried going with a big group, and that really doesn't work in my case. People are seeing things and I'm not, and I tend to slow everyone down. And I thought, well, okay, me and my wife will do this, and if we're somewhere where we need a guide, we'll hire a guide, which is nice. And I have had on occasions, when we first started doing this, I didn't want to tell anybody about my eyes. I'm just going to power through this. I don't want to talk about it, and that doesn't work. And I had guides just saying things like, what do you mean you can't see it? It's right in front of you. And then I learned, all right, I'm going to tell these guys up front, and that almost always works. It's very rare that I've had a problem. I have had a couple that, even though I've explained to them my issues, they'll a day later they'll be saying, no, it's right there on the ground. Use your binoculars. Like, no, I know what I'm doing. I don't.
Yeah.
I can't see it. So, I'm just very careful to make it clear up front with anybody new that I'm going birding with what it's going to be like, because it's
Mhm.
not going to be like a normal birding adventure if they want me to be around and not lagging behind. And then as far as nature goes, I guess I try to be an optimistic pessimist, in the sense that I prepare for the worst case scenario, and then I hope for something good to happen. So every birding outing I expect torrential rain and torrential heat and mosquitoes and ticks and I'm ready for anything. I'm ready for that I've eaten something that doesn't agree with me, and then I find out later when I'm in the field, which is another thing I'm terrified of, and that's happened more than once. So yeah, I try to be as absolutely prepared as I can, and I don't know what else to do. That's how I deal with it.
That's how you deal with it.
Yeah.
Marjorie, you mentioned uncertainty when you were first answering our last question. And I wonder if you could speak a little bit more about that. How do you handle uncertainty?
Yes, I'm listening to what Michael was saying. Thank you. I echo every single thing that you were saying of feeling like, oh my God, is that going to happen? And so, yes, we also, we have an adaptive tandem bike now that my husband worked with a bike builder to build, so that we can get me out. I don't have the balance for a bike, but we fill those panniers of our bike with, as though we were going to an Arctic expedition, as well as a tropical place. That so we've got hot, cold packs, we've got hot, warm, warm clothes, we've got sprayers, we've got water, we everything. And that's exactly what we do, is we prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And I worry the whole time anyway, so that I do more worrying, so my husband just does it, and he keeps going, and thankfully he's the one that steers, and I just have to sit back on the bike and say, wherever he takes me, okay, I'll go.
Right.
And, it's magical, because it sees, we can go 20, 30 miles at a time and see things that I can only walk about 2 miles round trip. So I'm very, very limited on foot, but on our bike, we can see all these bike trails and all the things in nature out
Right.
there is really amazing.
Thank you, Marjorie. I remember I taught school for 30 years, and I remember telling my students, if you aren't comfortable, then that means you might be learning something. So please do not be in the situation of seeking comfort. That is not where your accomplishments are. And so I was an AP teacher, and they were all like, oh my gosh, one of those. But I believe that so firmly with every part of my being, which is as soon as you are looking at something difficult, as soon as you are looking at something uncertain, take that negative energy, reframe it, and think about how you're going to feel after you've accomplished it.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
It's just, it's such a wonderful feeling. And it's just, you just have to say, okay, that's how I'm going to feel while I'm feeling scared, because I really, really want to do this.
Right. Emerson.
Yes. To just keep this ball rolling, because it feels like we all kind of experience a lot of the same feelings when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Nice.
I've really honed in that uncertainty and uncomfortable doesn't necessarily mean unsafe. And, you know, as long as there's not that big risk of danger immediately, why not do it? Like, you know, I like to say on like worst case scenario, I die, but the chances are pretty low. And that when you frame it that way, it's pretty easy to be like, okay, a nap in the woods isn't the worst thing to do to get myself home. But definitely having the equipment. I liked what you two were saying about learning what kind of works for you and then owning it. I love my walking poles. They're the greatest thing ever. And I take them because what if I need them? And having more things to be prepared is definitely better than the other way around.
I like that. So that's one of the ways in which sounds like everybody deals with uncertainty by being as prepared as you can be. But I also agree with Topher full force that if you spend all this time making sure you're ready to go, you'll never go. You know, if you're trying to do so much planning that all of a sudden you just end up planning your life away instead of actually just jumping in and doing it. Bonnie, what do you say?
I just kind of remember that all things must pass and that I'll get through this too, and agree with Topher that I also have come to a place in my life where it's okay to ask for help. And if I get in a situation that I need help with, it's okay to ask for it. You do meet some incredible people. There's a lot of generosity out there and people want to help. I also do research. I mean, much of my work career has been bridging the information gap barrier that's out there. So I try and do as much research as I can beforehand, but I also go with the expectation that something's going to go wrong. Mm-hmm. And when it doesn't, I'm that much happier. So yeah, it's worth all the pain and suffering. No. But I also, on a more practical level, I carry an orange cone, traffic cone with me in my van because I have a ramp. And oftentimes where I'm going, they don't have an accessible parking space. Or if I get blocked in by someone, then I'm, really need someone's help. Yeah. And so I put the orange cone next to my van so that someone doesn't park there. I make sure my phone is charged. Excuse me. And always check the weather, and having food and water with me at all times is really important as well. So those are just some ways I handle it.
You guys sound a lot more prepared than I ever am. Nicole. Uncertainty.
Uncertainty, yes. I think that is one of the hardest parts of exploring and adventuring. With autism, I need expectations, and it doesn't go the way I expected them to go. It's really hard. So I've kind of learned to go in with little expectations, and I like to do everything twice. Go to a place once with few expectations, scope it out, see how it is, and then I go again and I can, do it right. It'll be much better. I have to do a lot of research, plan as much as I can.
Wow.
pack way too much. My backpack is like always so heavy because I have to be prepared for everything. But the biggest thing is that no matter what goes wrong, as long as I make sure to enjoy the birds, that's all that really matters. Even if the rest of it sucks, which it sometimes often does, you have to make sure that you're enjoying the birds, and then it's worth it.
I love it. And I love your facial expression right now as you're describing this. You're just kind of like beaming. Thank you. Again, you guys seem a lot more organized than I am. I usually just throw myself on the mercy of whatever it is and then figure it out on the other end. Somehow I keep meeting another day, but my dad is still throwing his hands up in the air. So I have another question, and that is, who showed you how to be an explorer, or who are your models for how to explore? Topher?
So I would say my first model was a paraplegic that ended up living next to me when I got out of the hospital from my accident. He wouldn't let me say, oh, I can't do it, I'm a quadriplegic. He would always make fun of me and be like, I can't do it, I'm a quadriplegic. And just kind of like egging me on a little bit. And he's like, here, like even like getting into his car, he had a Jimmy. And he's like, we can figure out how you can get into this. It's just going to take practice. And he wouldn't let me say no, that I can't do something. He was always there like saying, yeah, yes, you can. And having people in my life like that. Same with like sit skiing. I had a buddy, he worked up at NSCD, National Sports Center for the Disabled. And I asked, oh, I don't really like the bi-ski. Can I try the monoski? And he was like, yeah, you can do anything you put your mind to. We'll do it. It's going to be hard. But just having like both of those guys saying that I could do stuff, even though the world was saying I couldn't, they were my heroes for sure.
It sounds though also, Topher, like you had an incredible amount of faith in yourself.
Yeah.
Because even though you have people cheerleading for you and egging you on and knowing you can do it, you still have to report to you. And where did that come from?
Boy, probably just deep down inside of me. I think all of us have that though, just like hearing everybody else's stories and their wisdom and stuff. I think we all have that inner drive to do our best and to enjoy birds and whatever we're out doing. So
Right.
I think you just have to dig into it when you get disabled.
Thanks, Topher.
That.
Michael, who is your model?
Well, that's a really good question. I've thought about it a lot. And so I'll go back and state that when I was young, when I had my nature epiphany, I was probably about 12 years old. In fact, I know I was 12 years old because it happened one night. And it didn't have anything to do with birds or forests or any of that. It was astronomy. And I went out and looked at the stars and realized, okay, this is what I care about. And, so I was naturally attracted to physics and astronomy, and yeah, all of these great scientists that learned so many things, Einstein and Carl Sagan and Stephen Hawking were my heroes. But I was very lucky because this was in Salt Lake City, Utah, where I grew up. And there was an organization there called the Salt Lake Astronomical Society with a bunch of adults who were just crazy about astronomy. And they took me under their wing. My parents were getting divorced at the time, so it wasn't much fun at home. And, these people that do astronomy are a lot like birders, it turns out, a lot like them. And it's a really similar kind of pursuit where you can go out and, I was with adults that had actually discovered comets and asteroids, and they're amateurs. And, sometimes they call themselves stargazers, kind of like we might say bird watchers, but the term that they use, which I still love, is they're amateur astronomers. So I will often tell people I'm an amateur ornithologist because I like the sound of that. And anyway, so my answer is it was those adults that I was with as a child that I realized that, it doesn't matter if it's just your hobby, you can still do this discovery. And the adventure with astronomy, you don't have to go anywhere. You go in your backyard. It's right there. And exploring is something that happens in your head, not something that happens outside of you. And I still cling to that with birds also, because I can't see the stars now. So birds function as my stars.
Mhm. I love what you said about exploring is in your head. And that's actually touching into my next question. Thank you, Michael. Marjorie, who were your models?
I first give credit to my husband for all the things we've done in the last 17 years. But when I think about when I met him and the hunger for me to get outdoors, I have to look back and say, yeah, my mom, the Girl Scout, my mom that took us camping, my mom that loved birding in Florida and got so excited when she would see wood storks. And so even though she's been gone many years, I'm convinced that even though I wasn't really following through on all of that until I met my husband, I had that hunger, and I hadn't met the person that was ready to say, I'll give you the support to help you through that. And but my mom got so excited about any birds and about lots of different things, and that had to have rubbed off. I'm grateful for that.
I'm grateful too. Emerson, who taught you how to be brave?
That's totally my mom, who's watching tonight. So hi, Mom. As an ADHD kid with a brother who's the same, we were a lot to handle. So we went outside a lot, and we lived just around the corner from this amazing creek, Sligo Creek. And we were always like digging under rocks and getting muddy and rubbing gravel in our hair. And that was okay. Like, there are so many less rules outside, and go for it. And everything's exciting. I mean, I could look at rocks for hours because they're just so interesting and cool. And being able to get lost in the moment and just like really be connected to what's going on around you is awesome. And it was encouraged. So we got to do it all the time. And then my mom was a birder, so I became a birder. And the rest is history. I went to college for it, and now I get to do it for a living. How cool is that?
I love it. Thank you so much, Emerson. Bonnie, who taught you to be the explorer?
Well, I really struggled with this one. And it's kind of the result of an anti-explorer. My mom, being a redheaded, fair-skinned woman, didn't like to be outdoors much. But I always wanted to be outdoors. So growing up, I was, nature was my happy place. And so when I became disabled, that didn't change. I still love the outdoors. But what she modeled was finding a way to do something. She would stay up, late at night trying to figure out how I could get my pants on or off, and would come up with these adaptions. And so what she modeled was, figure it out, you can do it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what I say was my explorer moment.
I love the figuring out business. I think that is maybe the most important thing for each of us, is having someone model for us these solutions and being willing to figure it out as we go and have that actually be a challenge that we embrace. I feel like many of us are seeking situations that have to be figured out, right? What did you say, Nicole?
I had a hard time picking just one answer for this one.
Good.
But I would have to say, this might be a little bit of a silly answer, but my childhood hero growing up was Steve Irwin. And I always wanted to be like Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter. I was obsessed. And I think I've been obsessed with exploring outdoors ever since a young child. Because of that, but also because I grew up adventuring a lot with my parents. All of our vacations and weekends were spent hiking and camping and stuff. But then I think a lot of my inspiration also comes from my students. I work a lot with kids, and they have just such this natural curiosity, and it's such an inspiring and contagious, I mean, I don't know, they rub off on you, I guess. They get so excited about exploring the littlest things, and it's just contagious to me. I don't know.
Right. I love it. It's funny too, I think, how curiosity as an adult tries to run away from us. I think, you know, when we're kids, we have that curiosity. And then as we age and we find ourselves immersed in all these other life difficulties, our curiosity seeps away. And I like that you brought that up, Nicole, because I think curiosity is a really important part of being an explorer. My next question has to do with, who have you taught to be an explorer? Do you have any explorer students, people you've taught? Topher, do you have some people? I'll bet you do.
I was just thinking of a group of Cub Scouts that I went out with after Nicole mentioned all the little kids. We took them on a wheelchair hike this last Sunday, putting them in wheelchairs to give them that experience. And just took them along a trail, and just that youth, they were so curious and they were having so much fun. And so many just real honest questions. So it was so amazing to take them out. And I think I actually, by doing those programs, I get a little curiosity back. Like Nicole was saying, just being around them kind of rubs off on you. I just want to add to bike rides that we do. We have some all-terrain hand cycles. So I take out a lot of people that have different disabilities, and they haven't been able to get into nature except in their wheelchair, or except with like pulling an oxygen tank with them. And by putting them in these bikes, all of a sudden, because they're power assist, they can go a lot further and over rougher stuff.
Yeah.
And, just seeing from the beginning to the end, like all of a sudden they're like, wow, like I can like go off and I can explore, and I can like go so much further, and I can go with my friends on bikes, and like it just opens this whole new world. And I love being able to provide that for people.
Right. I love it that you're doing that, Topher. Did you get some good videos or pictures?
Did I get some good videos or pictures?
Yeah, of the scouts in their chairs.
Oh yeah, a couple of good pictures for sure. Yeah.
I would love to see those.
I'll show them to you sometime.
Okay. So Michael, who have you taken under your wing to teach to be an explorer?
Well, we have two kids. They're adults now. They're both in graduate school. And, you know, it's funny because when they were young, I mean, they're not birders. I'll say that first of all.
Not yet.
Having two parents that are as hardcore as we are, you know, just to give a very short example, a couple years ago in 2017, when the eclipse came through North America, we drove out to Nebraska. And you know, I had all of our optics, you know, and I said, here, you guys put on the binoculars, because when totality hits, you'll be able to look at, you know, with the bins at the sun. And, you know, 10 minutes before, one of them looked around and he looked at all four of us and said, look, this is terrible. We're all carrying binoculars. And it's probably the only time that's ever happened that all four of us have binoculars on. But anyway, no, so they're not into birding, but we're just thrilled because so my wife's a biologist, I'm a physicist. We did manage to keep them interested in exploring the world. So they're both doing science. One of them does chemistry, the other one does physics, and so they're in grad school. We couldn't be more proud of them because that's, again, they're doing the exploration up here.
Right.
And I feel like, yeah, that's the best thing I've done.
Good job. So Marjorie, who are you grooming to be an explorer?
I've already groomed my two kids, and they both really enjoy being out biking, out hiking, and I've got grandkids that are, some live right nearby, and some that I'm hoping to visit soon in Tennessee, and they all like being outdoors. And when I go to see any of them, it's, what are we going to do today, Grandma?
Yeah.
And So they know that I like to do things outdoors. I also have this Facebook group that has kind of exploded that's focused specifically on New England, but a lot of people are coming to it even just that want to see things that love New England. So it has some interest for people outside New England, but I'm really adamant about anyone, it's a group, so members can share, but I'm adamant over and over, look at the pinned post, look at what we're looking for. We want to know, don't just show us pretty pictures, tell us where it is, tell us what town, tell us for search purposes, for other people who are coming, where to park, are dogs welcome, what are the trail conditions like, is it paved, are there rocks, are there roots? And so I've been, the name of the Facebook group is Easy Walks, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and nearby. So I welcome people to come, but I expect something from the members, and I'm not just, here's a bunch of pretty nature pictures. It's, you have a gift when you go out and explore to help pass on things that are going to encourage other people. And I watch as other group people are saying, I went and explored here because of what I saw in this group.
Right.
And that,
Thank you.
the best gift.
Thank you, Marjorie, for this. Reminds me of that wonderful Mary Oliver poem that says, pay attention, be amazed, tell about it. That's what you're doing. Emerson.
So I was thinking about this, and I do a lot of nannying and babysitting. And so of course, all the kids go birding because it's the best. And I like to teach them about how to explore and like, just go at it, have fun, rules apply once we go back home. But I also think I taught myself how to explore after I started my journey with my Lyme disease, that I had to relearn how to adventure and approach exploration. And I think there was this process of relearning it myself through trial and error and discovery and meeting people along the way.
Yeah, cool. Bonnie, who are you grooming?
Well, excuse me. Well, I hope through the book that I wrote a while ago and the website that I manage of accessible trails in Northern California that I've made it easier for people to get out there. But in particular, I've been grooming my friend's grandson, who is a young boy, black 6-year-old little boy. And every present I've ever gotten him had to do with exploring nature. In fact, his birthday is Sunday, and I just got him a pair of binoculars and a periscope, and he's totally into it. And he lives in San Francisco, so he's doing the urban nature thing, and it's really exciting to watch.
I love it. Thank you, Bonnie, for helping him learn how to find his inner explorer. Nicole, who are you grooming to be the next world's best explorer?
Well, this is exactly why I love my job so much. I work in education. I probably see dozens and dozens and dozens of different kids and families every week. And I get so excited when they come in, they're excited to show me their new field guide they just got, or their family went out hiking to a place I suggested, or they're excited to come tell me about a bird that they saw. And I think I've kind of been doing that my whole life. I've always been working with kids, and I've kind of been turning them all into little naturalists and birders.
Oh, I love it. That sounds wonderful.
Can I just I also wrote, it's Marjorie again.
Yeah.
I also wrote I've written 4 books on finding easy walks. So very 3 local field guides, 2 very local ones, and then finding easy walks wherever you are, which is basically how have we done all of that, and hoping to really give people the tools so they can go out and do the same thing that my husband and I do and other supportive people do. So that's been a real journey all in itself. I never thought I would be writing books for other people.
Marjorie, I think I have a few of your books actually.
Oh, thank you, Nicole.
I
That's so
actually,
sweet.
I did not put it together until you started talking about it on this call, but I have them and I love them.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's so exciting for me. Thank you.
Thank you, people.
Yay.
You know, I feel like sometimes I try to identify what is it that makes some of our presentations so contagious, or our personalities so contagious and infectious, and people are like, whoa, I'm all revved up. What's going on here? And I think it has to do with our explorers. I do. I think our explorers are speaking to other people and it gets their attention. If you could define explorer, what is an explorer? Does anybody want to try that one? Michael?
Well, I'm not sure it's so much of a definition, but I always feel like you know you've really done a good job exploring if you've completely changed your mind about something. I really like it when I have some held idea and then I realize that I was completely wrong about that. Then I know that I've actually gone out and explored somewhere new, and that's one way I know. So not really a definition, but
I like that, and I'm very glad you brought that up, because I think we all know that entering a room with certainty means you're going to learn absolutely nothing. Right? And so what that means then is that uncertainty has such a much more important role to play when you are meeting new people, when you are in a new room, when you're in a new situation. That it's almost like your success depends on your ability to embrace uncertainty. Just like you said, Michael. Nicole?
Again, I'm not sure if it's a definition, but I think to me, what I consider exploring is when I feel like I've left my comfort zone a little bit, when I've pushed myself maybe more than I normally would, especially if I feel proud of myself afterwards. That's when I know I've definitely done some exploring and adventuring.
Right.
And that could be right down the street or driving to Ohio. It's all the same. If I push myself out of my comfort zone a little bit, I feel like
Right. Right. Anybody else want to go ahead, Marjorie?
I really wanted to go back to what Nicole was saying about liking to go to a place more than once, because I think for myself and obviously for other people, the first time you go someplace, there's so much sensory input because it's all new and it's all confusing, and it's, you can't look closely. And so, like for Michael, only being able to look closely, in some ways, the rest of the world has gotten shut out, and so you can focus differently. I'm the kind of person that only wants 2 choices in soap. Don't give me 20, because I just can't do with all of that. So, and so going back to a familiar place isn't that it's boring, it's that I get a chance to soak in, and I get, especially if it's a familiar place, and that's where local places are so wonderful, because they're still different. It isn't that you're bored because it's always the same. It's not. There's always to be different things there.
Yeah.
But to add to that, going at different seasons really makes a difference as well.
Right. Topher?
So I just had a thought that kind of ties in with that whole curious thing. I don't know if you've all seen Ted Lasso, new TV show. I got sucked into it, and one of the things he talked about was there's 2 kinds of people. There's the curious and there's the judgmental. And I think the explorers are the curious ones.
Right.
Yeah, asking questions, seeing new things, thinking new things. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And it's such a much healthier place to be, gosh. Sometimes it's difficult though. I remember Mom telling me as I was growing up, honey, you need to be curious, not judgmental. So if my first thought was, why is that guy acting like such a jerk? It became, I wonder why that guy is. Anyway, I'm still learning.
We all are.
Yeah. Hey, Freya.
Hi, everyone.
Is it that time?
It's getting there. It's getting there. We've got a whole lot of really awesome questions, so I want to make sure we get a chance to answer some of them. So thank you, panelists. This has been really cool. I hope folks who have listened in or hung out with us today have learned some things, maybe changed their attitude a little bit, maybe broadened their horizons about how to explore and what kind of adventures you can have. And as Bonnie said, they don't have to be far off, expensive, exotic adventures. They can be adventures in your backyard. And as Michael said, the exploration happens in your head. Panelists, you probably haven't been looking at the chat, but I've been quoting you like mad in the chat because there's been some really fantastic gems of wisdom. So thank you for sharing so much of your story and your experiences with us. One of the questions that we had come in was about exploring alone, and whether you go exploring alone or Bonnie, I know you mentioned that you often go with someone else now just to sort of have a bit of a safety net there, but panelists, do you go exploring alone? Do you go exploring with someone else? Do you do a bit of both? Does it depend on something else? What's your experience with that?
I'll take this one if that's okay. I like doing a little bit of both. Going with someone has all of the benefits we've talked about, but it's also really empowering to know that I'm the person who's going to take care of myself and that I had the skills and the knowledge to do it. And then to go and do it and to show up for yourself in that way is really awesome.
I made a commitment to my husband because I have a seizure condition besides the other things that I live with. And I made a commitment that I would not go hike alone, and that he supports the work that I've done to write these books. I needed to go with other people. I couldn't do it all just with him. So, but it's opened me up to friendships that I wouldn't have had because I needed other people. And as opposed to, I can do this alone. I can do this all by myself. It was, I welcome other people into my life that will make things richer, and I am richer for that because I need the help that I do. And ultimately, everyone needs help at some time in our lives. Everyone. It's just, that's the way it is.
Thank you, Marjorie, for making that point. And also, by the way, this was one of my questions that I didn't get to. So thank you for the person who came up with that question. I have long said that it's important for us to be able to be unattended in nature. And the reason for that is that as long as I found that there was someone else there, I wasn't drawing on myself enough. It was easy for me to not accept the responsibility, Emerson, as you had just said so gracefully, that only when I was completely alone in nature was I really showing up in a real way. And I'm just going to really quickly tell you this one poem that I wrote a few days ago, and it starts like this. That's the thing about being alone in nature. You can't defer to anyone else. You have to show up, and it's magic to meet yourself there.
Thanks, y'all. That's really cool. I also want to mention that disability is diverse, and there are so many different kinds of disabilities, and people even with the same diagnosis can have really different experiences, and they might have other diagnoses too. And some folks will have different days between one and the next, what they can do, whether they should go out by themselves or not. And someone's just put in the chat that they wanted to make sure that to note that not everyone can go alone, but that doesn't mean they can't still be seeking that liberating exploring. And interdependence, relying on each other, is very important in a society that often teaches us that we need to be able to be perfect alone. And I thought that was a really great point as well. You can explore with a group, you can explore with a friend, you can explore by yourself. It's and the fun thing about birding too is that there's lots of organized bird outings in a group, but lots of people go birding just with a friend and go birding alone as well. So birding's just such a great excuse for some of us to go exploring. Nicole, I saw you put your hand up. Did you want to add anything to that before we ask the next question?
Yeah, so my default state is I enjoy being by myself most of the time. I love being alone, but for safety reasons, one thing I might suggest for people is I have a GPS tracker on my phone. My mom can see where I am at all times. And I also give everybody very detailed plans of where I'm going, how long I might be there, and I kind of check in and stuff. So for anyone who might have concerns about going out alone, that has kind of helped me a bit. And accepting help from others. I have a couple of friends who I like to go out with, and that's really helpful too.
You know, whether you have a disability or not, it's really a wise idea. If you're going to be going out into the backcountry, to tell someone that you're going. Recently here, there's been several people that lost their lives because, well, certain situations, but you don't have to have a disability to take that kind of responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Bonnie and Nicole, for bringing that up. Safety in birding and the outdoors is something that we want to help the birding community and the outdoors keep working towards a birdability. So thank you for those really practical suggestions. I've been putting some links in the chat as people have asked about them. It's just sort of come up naturally in the chat, but I wanted to give you all a chance to shout out any resources that you know of that might help folks learn a bit more or about exploring or your own adventures. So I've already shared Michael's blog, which is Legally Blind Birding. I've shared Topher's links to the Boulder Open Space and Mountain Parks and the accessible programs there. I've shared the link to Marjorie's website, and Bonnie, I've shared the Access Northern California website as well. Virginia's holding up a book. So yeah, if you've got any more resources that you think, and folks listening who are here tonight, please share any resources you know that might help folks go exploring in the chat, because I bet there's a whole lot more. Panelists, do you have any more resources?
One thing I like to use a lot are certain websites and apps like, what's that trail one? Now I'm blanking on it.
All trails?
Yes. Yes. It's not always perfect. I mean, people who are just writing reviews aren't always like, qualified to really know if it's handicap accessible or whatever, but that's a great place to start your research before you go somewhere. I always look that up before I go somewhere.
The Birdability map, that's one of my favorites.
And Freya, will all of these resources, because once the Zoom is finished, you can't get those links anymore. They'll be up on the Birdability site.
Yes, all the links that are shared in the chat. When this event is being recorded, it's on the Facebook, on National Audubon's Facebook page, but we will upload the recording to YouTube and to our website, and we'll have those links in the caption there. So yeah, they won't get lost. People will be able to find them again. Thank you, Bonnie. Great point. There's we've also had the Memoration Project shared in the chat, and the Everyone Outdoors blog has been shared in the Zoom chat. So if you're on Facebook, hopefully you can Google those things. I can't do a Q&A session and also put comments in the Facebook. So hopefully you can get hold of those as well. Marjorie, you got something else?
Yes, my friend Lisa out in San Francisco has a website called Hiking Autism. And it's an amazing, she has both very, very local resources with incredible trail descriptions. And she also has insight posts where she talks about the emotional and the other types of challenges. Her son is very low function autistic, and hiking has made a huge difference in being able to function for him and their family. And she also invites people to contribute places on her website. So hiking autism, I'm not feeling like I can go look the link up for it, but it's hikingautism.com, and it's a wonderful resource.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Marjorie. Virginia, you were holding a book up and I have it too because you recommended it to me. Did you want to talk briefly about this book? You have to unmute though.
Sorry. Yeah, so I just wanted to tell you how much I've enjoyed perusing this book. I've given it to everybody I know because it really seems to outline and make accessible the next step to being an explorer. It's like, okay, you've decided, you've been inspired by all of us to tap into your inner explorer. What's the first step? And so I feel like this book gives you a million different ways to take the next step into discovering your explorer. And it's written in such a beautiful way, and I just can't recommend it enough.
And a lot of the explorations in there are really ones you can just do in your neighborhood or your local park or your backyard as well. So they're accessible, right, to a lot of folks who maybe can't go out on big epic adventures, but they can have adventures close by. Speaking of explorations and birding, there's a book out called Ornithotherapy, and it has a whole lot of birding explorations. It's about mindful birding, you know, being in the moment with a bird rather than rushing around just checking it off a list. And that might be a way to explore birds close by or far away that is more accessible to you than other ways of enjoying birds too. So yeah, I'm sure there are more books, but I look forward to learning more about them. We've got a couple of minutes left.
Can I give a quick shout out to Jennifer Bristol's books? One is called Parking Lot Birding. And it's, I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a really wonderful way to get in the car and start your, exploration of parking lots in your area. And then there's also cemetery birding, and that's along the same line. So other ways to explore. Go ahead, Freya.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to give a plug to the Birdability map too, anyone can submit site reviews to the Birdability map. It's a way to document the accessibility of birding locations, not just trails, but bird blinds and observation platforms and feeder stations and auto routes, at national wildlife refuges and stuff. A lot of that detailed access information isn't necessarily available on the state park or the nature centre's website. And so the Birdability map, you just have to report what you find. You don't have to be experts on any of this. So anyone can contribute. Yes, the Mindful Birding book title, Ornithotherapy, one word, as in ornithological and therapy, Ornithotherapy. It's 3 authors. I'm having a massive mind blank. Holly Merker. If you Google Richard Crosley, Holly Merker, and Sophie Crosley are the 3 authors. It's also up on our website under our More Resources tab. One question, last question we'll have time for tonight. Sorry if we didn't get to all the questions, but you can always email me at info@birdability.org, and I can pass your questions on to the panelists if you have any questions for the whole panel or just for individuals here. The question is, if any of you have any sensory issues, do you have tips for dealing with those when you do any outdoor work or exploring?
I have a lot of sensory issues. Again, these guys are maybe my best friend when I'm out there. When anything is too loud, especially if I am near a road or an airport or anything like that, it's kind of hard to accept the fact that you're going to miss out on hearing the bird songs, but headphones in the end will always be very, very helpful when sound is overwhelming. I also have a really hard time with bright lights. I have a really hard time seeing if I'm not like, in the shade in the woods. Sunglasses and hats with a visor are pretty helpful. And I also like to carry around some kind of like lotion or something, because there's some places that have really strong smells, especially in the summertime when there's certain flowers in bloom and stuff like that. So having something like that can really help. That'll also help I have sometimes a problem with texture, and so a little bit of lotion that'll go a long way there too. But yeah, that is a really good point that a lot of people often don't consider.
Yeah, I'll just add that strangely with retinitis pigmentosa, one of the problems that we have is sensitivity to glare. You would think that a lot of light would be helpful, but when there's bright light, it absolutely destroys my vision even worse. So I bought, because I didn't come with it, but my binoculars, I have the rubber eye cups that come all the way. I don't have my bins with me right now. I hold them up, but the eye cups that go all the way around, they block out any light. They're a major pain to use if you wear glasses, which I do when I'm out birding. So I'm always lifting those up. But if I don't use those, I really won't see anything at all. So putting the rubber eye cups on, if you have a glare sensitivity, can be a game changer.
Yes, Michael, I have those too. They are like my best friend.
Yes.
I've only ever seen one other person with them, and I often get the question of what are those? And it's really a major game changer. Otherwise, you're sitting there like this with your binoculars.
Yes.
I definitely suggest that to anyone who's sensitive to bright light or anything.
Yeah.
They're awesome. I think I got mine on Amazon. So.
What about a binocular harness? Do any of you rock those? Mine gets really heavy around my neck, so I have kind of like a strap system. That is excellent. I also wear toe socks, because somehow when I hike in toe socks, I can make it much farther than when I don't. So finding really comfortable clothing has really reduced my sensory overload when I'm out and about.
Thanks so much, you all. That's really awesome. And we definitely need to get those binocular eye cups up on our adaptive birding equipment webpage so more people can find them if they're helpful. We are almost out of time. I want to give a quick plug for Birdability Week because we have a lot more events coming up. We have a webinar tomorrow about what really makes an accessible trail. We have another panel on Thursday about being welcoming and inclusive of BIPOC, LGBTQIA+, and disabled birders. We have a craft workshop that Emerson will be leading on Friday. On Sunday, we have a slow birding workshop, and Saturday is the Birdability Big Sit, which is our big fundraiser. Emerson will be involved, Michael will be involved, Virginia and myself will be involved, and there's a few others. Thank you, Carrie, for reminding me in the comments. She'll be there. Please check out our website, because we would love for you to sponsor the whole Team Nuthatch, or just one of us to identify by sight or sound the birds that we do during that day. And you can follow along with us on Instagram. I'll be doing check-ins with the birders and seeing how they're going and what birds they've found. So please sponsor us. We would really love your help sponsoring that. And any money raised will go towards ASL interpreters tonight, honorariums for Birdability Week, and workshop costs. So you'll be helping us put on Birdability Week, which is very much appreciated. Massive thanks to Virginia, to all the panelists for this amazing event. I'm really looking forward to watching the recording back again. Also want to thank Joe Watts, Becca Matthews, and Christine Lynn, who've been helping keep an eye on the chat across Facebook and Zoom tonight. So really appreciate your help in the background. Big thanks again to National Audubon for helping amplify Birdability Week and for their ongoing allyship with this work. We really appreciate National Audubon. And yeah,
can I just say from the bottom of my heart to all you panelists. It was so much fun to be with you tonight. Thank you so much. I look forward to being with you all again. Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone. I look forward to vetting with you one day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.